Burkina Faso is at a crossroads. With enemies at the gates, internal strife threatening national unity, and global powers allegedly lurking in the shadows, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the country's revolutionary leader, is making bold claims, issuing ruthless warnings, and declaring that democracy is dead. What's really happening in Burkina Faso, and why should the we care? Let's dive into it. On April 1st, 2025, just after Ramadan ended, Traoré addressed the nation with a fierce warning. No jokes, no smiles, just fire in his words. He declared, "We are not in democracy. We are in revolution." He warned of stateless enemies gathering by a mysterious lagoon, ready to strike. He didn't mince words. Traoré made it clear, any citizen manipulated by these enemies would be dealt with soullessly. According to him, Burkina Faso is at war, not just with terrorists, but with traitors, foreign agents, and even internal civil society groups. The threats aren't just external. Inside Burkina Faso, Traoré claims that certain ethnic groups, particularly factions within the Fulani or Fani communities, are being manipulated by foreign media and NGOs to turn against the state. He says some Fulani herders are transporting weapons and militants into forests, hiding under the cover of cattle, then launching attacks on civilians. And it's not just talk. In neighboring Nigeria, similar operations were exposed. Over 140 suspected militants found hidden in trucks, armed and ready. It's this same cross-border insurgency model Traoré says is destabilizing the Sahel. Traoré's message is clear. Burkina Faso cannot afford the luxury of liberal democracy. He claims that no country in history developed through democracy. It was always through revolution. To him, democracy is a mask for disorder, manipulation, and Western interference. Whether you agree or not, his stance is bold and dangerous. He's calling for discipline, order, and ruthlessness. He warns of agents working with embassies, civil society organizations acting as puppets, and political figures selling out the revolution. But here's where it gets even more geopolitical. Traoré mentions a lagoon where enemies are said to be gathering. Burkina Faso is landlocked, so what lagoon is he talking about? Some believe he's referring to Ibrahim Lagoon in Côte d'Ivoire, near Abidjan. This would mean Traoré is accusing Ivory Coast of harboring militants planning attacks on Burkina Faso. If true, it would mark a severe diplomatic crisis between two West African nations. Burkina Faso's struggle is not in isolation. From Mali to Niger, the Sahel is erupting in coup, insurgencies, and anti-French sentiment. Traoré is part of a new generation of African leaders rejecting Western norms, embracing sovereignty through military strength. Burkina Faso isn't standing alone. Since 2023, we've seen the formation of a powerful anti-Western axis in the Sahel: Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Three nations now governed by military regimes. They've expelled French troops, canceled military deals with the West, and launched joint anti-terror operations. This coalition, what some are calling the Sahel Alliance, has one mission: reclaim sovereignty. Traoré and his allies are openly saying, no more foreign bases, no more puppet leaders, no more IMF strings. But with that comes a massive challenge. Without Western support, how do you fight armed insurgents across thousands of kilometers of desert? In his speech, Traoré warns of media houses lying to our people. He claims that genocide accusations against his forces are propaganda, used to paint him as the aggressor when, in his words, it's actually terrorists disguised as civilians who are the real threat. This is the information war, and it's global. Western media portrays these military leaders as dictators. African state media portrays them as revolutionaries. And somewhere in the middle is the truth, blurred by disinformation, mistrust, and centuries of colonial wounds. Let's go back to that one cryptic line from Traoré. They are gathered by the lagoon. He's referring to a possible staging ground for attacks, likely pointing to Lagoon Ebrié in Ivory Coast near Abidjan. This is serious. If confirmed, it implies that Burkina Faso believes Ivory Coast is enabling enemies of the state. That accusation could destroy regional diplomacy and may hint at a growing divide between ECOWAS loyalists and Sahel revolutionaries. Remember, ECOWAS has already sanctioned Burkina Faso and Niger over their military takeovers. But these sanctions may be pushing them closer together, not weakening them. Traoré said something radical. No country developed through democracy. To many in the West, that sounds dangerous. But to some Africans, it resonates. They see decades of so-called democracy delivering nothing but poverty, corruption, and foreign meddling. Revolutionary leaders, from Sankara to Gaddafi, have long challenged Western liberal models. Traoré is stepping into that legacy. He's betting that strong leadership, cultural pride, and national control can achieve what imported democracy couldn't. But is it sustainable? Or is it just another cycle of power concentration with a new face? So what's next for Burkina Faso and the region? Here are 3 possibilities. 1. Consolidation of power. Traoré strengthens his grip and expands the revolution. 2. Internal collapse. Ethnic conflict and economic strain tear the revolution apart. 3. Regional war. If Ivory Coast or ECOWAS retaliates, we could see open conflict across borders. And behind it all, global powers, Russia, China, the US, France, are all watching and waiting. Some whisper that mercenaries are already involved. Others say more coups could be on the horizon. This is bigger than one man or one country. This is a battle for the soul of Africa. Is it time to rewrite the post-colonial playbook? Or are we watching history repeat itself, only this time with more chaos?
If you want to break with these imperialist forces, it's simple. We denounce the agreements. Everything starts from there. I think the example of Chad in any case is tangible. They started by denouncing the agreements. Otherwise, if we don't denounce the agreements, just saying that the bases leave, we haven't done anything. Because the problem lies in the colonial agreements, the defenses that have been signed since independence. The most dangerous is not the one you see in the bases. The most dangerous are the military advisors. Military advisors exist in all these countries. They existed in Burkina as well until the end of 2022, until we took responsibility. And who are these military advisors? They are the ones who are supposed to implement France's policy. Here, they must work to make our armies very weak so that France can always have the argument to exist here. Under their influence, they had succeeded. Our sentinels were therefore standing guard with sticks. That's what France wants from our armies. When we reach this stage, we have no choice but to want them to come and settle. But the Burkinabe army managed to get rid of the military advisors. Unfortunately, I think that in 2019, after Operation Otapono, where the French saw that the Burkinabe army still had the capacity to respond to terrorists, they called the chiefs of staff in France. They instructed him to reintegrate the military advisors throughout the structure. Well, they did not agree. But upon returning to the country, the politicians instructed him to accept the military advisors. And that's when the military advisors returned to the Burkinabe army in 2019. With all the consequences we know, the army was on the verge of disappearing in the years 2020, 2021. And indeed, this is the time when many soldiers had to desert because there was no longer any hope. We were in the process of collapsing. That's a bit how they work at the General Staff headquarters. In all army headquarters, in the schools, they are the ones who are supposed to dictate the policy of our army. They are the ones who tell us when to recruit, how to recruit, and what to do with them. They are in the schools to tell us how to train them, and so on. As long as these military advisors are there, you are not independent. Your army will just have the appearance of an army that is there to perform parades, a circus. But when war comes, you will realize that a parade is one thing, but war is another thing. You have to break the agreements. It's the only way to have an independent army and build strength.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Is Traoré a true revolutionary, and should African nations turn away from democracy or fight to reform it? If you're passionate about Africa, geopolitics, and truth beyond headlines, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. This conversation isn't over. It's just beginning.